The town of Quneitra, nestled along the Golan Heights and already scarred by decades of conflict, found itself under siege once again. In the early hours of dawn, the stillness of the Syrian countryside was shattered as Israeli forces launched an operation targeting key infrastructure in the town. According to local sources, the assault left entire streets unrecognizable, with homes and businesses buried under mounds of debris. Water networks that had been painstakingly restored after years of war were now severed, plunging Queneitra's residents into yet another humanitarian crisis. Khalid Mahmoud, a school teacher in Quneitra, described the scene with despair. "We woke up to the sounds of explosions. When the dust settled, our street was gone, shops, homes, everything. We have no water to drink, no roads to reach the hospital." The Israeli government issued a statement claiming the operation was aimed at dismantling what they described as logistical networks used by hostile militias. The statement added that the operation was a preventive measure to curb threats emanating from the region, where Iranian-backed groups have reportedly established a foothold. Syrian authorities, however, condemned the strikes, labeling them a violation of international law and an act of aggression against civilian infrastructure. "These actions are part of Israel's ongoing policy of destabilization in the region," said a spokesperson for Syria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Humanitarian organizations warned that the destruction of Queneitra's water networks could precipitate a health crisis. With temperatures dropping as winter approached, access to clean water was vital not only for drinking but also for basic hygiene. Aliyah al-Hariri, a volunteer with a local relief group, said, "The people here have been through so much already. They are trapped, no water, no roads, and no aid. This is not just an attack on infrastructure, it's an attack on life itself." The history of Quneitra, which was largely destroyed during the Arab-Israeli wars and abandoned for decades, has left it symbolizing the bitter conflict between Syria and Israel. Although partially rebuilt, the town remains a flashpoint due to its proximity to the contested Golan Heights. Observers fear that the destruction in Quneitra could escalate tensions further in a region already fraught with geopolitical rivalries. While calls for de-escalation echoed across the international community, many Syrians in Quneitra were left wondering if they would ever see peace, or even clean water, again. As the dust settled, families gathered to salvage what little they could from the ruins of their homes. In the absence of aid or intervention, they were left to endure the latest chapter of a tragedy that seems to have no end. Rebuilding amid the ruins, as the dust of destruction settled over Quneitra, the resilient spirit of its people began to surface. Families, their lives uprooted, started sifting through the rubble of what once were homes, schools, and businesses. Each fragment of intact material, bricks, beams, or glass, was salvaged in hopes of starting over. The lack of water compounded their suffering. With the town's primary water network in ruins, residents resorted to collecting rainwater or traveling miles to nearby springs under the constant risk of shelling or surveillance. Aid organizations, already stretched thin by years of conflict in Syria, struggled to provide immediate relief to Queneitra's residents. Despite the challenges, local initiatives emerged. A group of volunteers, led by a former engineer named Ziad Hussain, began repairing what they could with limited resources. "We can't wait for help to come from outside," Ziad explained. "Our survival depends on each other." Ziad and his team focused on patching up secondary pipelines to restore some semblance of water access. They used makeshift tools and whatever materials they could scavenge. Meanwhile, women in the community organized makeshift kitchens to ensure no family went hungry, pooling resources in acts of collective resilience. A silent cry for justice. The international community remained divided. While the United Nations issued statements condemning the destruction of civilian infrastructure, tangible actions to hold those responsible accountable were conspicuously absent. Neighboring countries, burdened by their own political agendas, offered little more than words of sympathy. Amal, a 10-year-old girl who lost her brother in the strikes, became a symbol of Queneitra's plight. Her voice, captured in a viral video, echoed the frustrations of her town. "Why does the world forget us? Are we not children like everyone else?" The footage, shared widely on social media, briefly reignited discussions about the humanitarian crisis in Syria. However, as headlines shifted to other global events, Queneitra's suffering faded once again into the background. The path forward, despite the destruction, hope persisted. Religious leaders and community elders called for unity, emphasizing the need to rebuild not just infrastructure but trust and solidarity among the people. "We have been through worse," said Sheikh Ahmad, addressing a gathering outside a damaged mosque. Our strength lies in our faith and in each other. We will rebuild, no matter how many times we are brought down. For now, Quneitra stands as a town caught between survival and despair. Its people navigating the uncertain terrain of rebuilding lives in the shadow of war, while the scars of the latest attacks will remain etched on its streets and its people. The spirit of Quneitra endures, a testament to the unyielding resolve of those determined to hold on to their home. Global response and local resilience. In the days following the destruction in Quneitra, the humanitarian crisis deepened. Without water, sanitation quickly deteriorated, and diseases began to spread among the vulnerable population. Aid workers struggled to reach the area, citing ongoing security concerns and restricted access. The international community's response was muted, with only a handful of nations addressing the situation. The United Nations called for an immediate ceasefire and access for relief agencies, but the words brought little solace to those on the ground. "We need action, not statements," pleaded Hanan Faraj, a nurse working in one of the makeshift clinics set up amid the ruins. Amid the devastation, acts of solidarity emerged. Communities in nearby towns sent what little aid they could spare: blankets, food, and water. A group of engineers from Damascus volunteered to help restore Quneitra water network, braving the perilous journey to the embattled town. A beacon of hope. Among the rubble, an unlikely symbol of hope began to take shape. Ziad Hassan and his team of volunteers managed to restore a portion of the town's water supply using salvaged materials. While the system was far from perfect, it provided a lifeline for the struggling community. "We're proving that even in the darkest times, we can build something together," Ziad said, his face streaked with dirt and determination. Children, despite the chaos, found ways to bring life back to the streets. They painted murals on the remaining walls, depicting scenes of peace, resilience, and a longing for normalcy. One mural, a dove holding an olive branch, became a rallying point for the town's residents. The fight for justice. Syrian authorities submitted formal complaints to international organizations, accusing Israel of targeting civilian infrastructure and violating international law. While these moves garnered support from some nations, others avoided taking sides, wary of exacerbating the volatile geopolitical climate. Activists and journalists began to document the aftermath of the destruction, sharing stories of resilience and despair with the world. Amal, the young girl whose plea for justice had gone viral, became a figurehead for a growing movement calling for accountability. "If no one will stand for us, we will stand for ourselves," Amal declared in a public gathering, her voice steady and resolute. A new chapter. As winter descended on Quneitra, life slowly began to adapt. Temporary shelters were erected, schools reopened in tents, and markets started to buzz with activity. The people of Quneitra, hardened by decades of hardship, pressed on with their lives, finding strength in unity and hope in small victories. While the scars of the recent destruction will take years to heal, the spirit of Quneitra remains unbroken. For every shattered home, there is a story of survival. For every destroyed street, a path forward is being paved. The town's resilience, etched into its people and walls, stands as a testament to the unyielding human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable loss, life persists.